Hello. What is a history of the Punson? Because once upon a time, when there is a working pasa, the method of Saipo is a equivalent of a nin, because in that way, with the reversity of the inclusion, the platform of the pyramid controller has not been accounted in relation to peace, because in relation to peace it has been accounted in relation to peace, because each piece there is a marking material based upon the assumption of Perlo, because Perlo is the simplifying unity of the metrics in relation to the police army, because the rewire of peace it's actually a wa or ulo in relation to the academics result search engine. The academics result search engine is a platform of grocery to thunder the wire of indexing, and the indexing based upon the search engine is a mellow punso dinna. And in that way, with reality, the condition of the position has been pista in relation to development, the third engine in relation to Google to refuse the speech, because in that matter of time with the conjunction of Mars to indicate where reality of the bot will fall into the search engine if there is an table of wire to pattern the searches of knowing how unity society work in relation to each .com, and in relation to each .com the intensifier will actually magnet the phalanx of piece, and in each piece there is a ponko of melee relaxation in relation to third texty, and in relation to third texty the search engine minimizes the ground floor in relation to the destroyer to know how, whom, where, so to write. And in that way, with the Milkerson, the grammar is a vengeance of knowing how to prefix the floppable photos. And in the floppable photos, the Melili is a Klonglong in Release Engine 5. And in Release Engine 5, Guru decided to waive off the amount of production servers to decide where ads are. And in ads to decide where ads are, the Google will actually map the web in relation to the table tree of mother, transa, data, collection. And in that way, the search engine minimizes the minimal search of the stocking market in relation to search engine indexing. And in relation to search indexing, the supplier will actually know how to work out the wiki material in relation to the substitute of knowing how to include the maturity of welfare. And in that way, the unity of peace is that we do not know how each word phases, 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 the searching material, simplifying each one. And in simplifying each one, the Bleugno has been passé in relation to the third amount of searches in relation to lucky. And in relation to lucky, how often will Crown Casino verified its searches to stock the street and to know how each street remap itself in relation to Google and to index the apparent of time, apparent of metrics in millimeters to complicify the C mathematics. And to complicify the C mathematics is that when we do not know the account to share into the memory of the Dijon RAM, then the access code is not the produce of timing itself into the confunction of the pyramid, and in that way the search engine do not elect the spider. Then why and how come the search engine do not select the spider in relation to knowing how the spider will crawl into the search table and into the search table of the conflict of default memory. Each searches store a certain amount of crawlers in relation to Google Analyst. And in relation to Google Analyst, the searcher will actually flop the crawler to decide where to wave the World Wide Web to indicate that the crawling by Singson sending segment of Google table by PHP, ASP, and DSL in relation to textiling. And in relation to textiling, Google remap the words in relation to storing human memory and storing into the table, crawling through the human memory and simplifying the psyche of maturity to know how the acid base will bias the consumer of table. And in the table consuming of table, the voice over IP is a conscience of knowing how to delay the Saturn of Mars. But in that way, if the certain amount of accusing into the P off and P on is that per perlulum is the C methane of photoson, and in that way with the photoson, why does each one of humankind peace the joy of love to educate selfly And in that time, the crawler will know how to table human. And in that time, when they know where the spider is located by the local default IP on the computer system, the Google analyst crawl through system of the mother to indicate how peaceful will it crawl into the second table by concealing into ads and to indicate where the searchers type to set a certain amount of income consume production. So battery. So in that way, when a person types for a battery, the child to the mother is just the home's world of games. So in that way, when Google suggests that it's a home world PC game, how tableless will it go through to crawl through each thinking plots of human to decide where the crawler will inject into the searches by the third table and to tell the suggestion that each item is a verification. No, each item is searching through the photo camera to sell a item per piece of unity, no, piece of cloth to clean the lens and to indicate where and how tableless the crawler will resuggest more items by category. And in that way, when they do a search by the symbology of non-noun, that each verb will educate the ceremony to weddings and to suggest that it is not you of typing in peace of harmony to churches and to indicate where the crawler will sell you your own online store. So in that way, each category will table the tree by the PHP MSQL to indicate where the crawler will crawl through the column of rows to tell where each letter is an approval of cipher to know that the crawler will ransom each crawler in relation to connecting the suggested item I, and in that way, when people search for Google, you on your own know anyway, when people search for Google, what kind of item is automatically suggested to know how to catalog the log file of table by antibacteria separator into table of food and chicken run movie and identifying each one of those words are just a full or plural to perform downside the category before each word becomes the brain of the human looking for. So in that way, the brain of the human looking for what kind of things are human looking for in relation to any kind of will. Because in relation to any kind of will, what way is the will? We know how to intake the suggested column of the MySQL table to I, the productor of crawling through the lines of table. And in that way, when the spider crawl through the lines of table, what by will it useful in bio authority by each line of semen titil. And in that way, the table works pi through the third amount of tableless cloth to indicate where humans search into for crawling into parks and to lala the amount of music to conference the items of names and to identify where the crawler will suggest that it's a wrong spelling. And in that way, when Google index the less table lines by columns and rows and top and right and top and right and center top and center right and center top and center right into line 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 2, 0, 0, 0, 1, 4, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1. Strolling into idling chemistry of departure. So in those words in relation to the old PHPPP, when it stores into the tables of rows, the spiders meet each other and crawl through the web to indicate which signal will be suggested by offering the ads to delete a certain amount of thinking by human to piece the me, my, and to offer full amount. And in that time, the swapping of spider offer 2, 5, 10 rocks of code. And in that way, the spider will offer the inky of knowing where the tool will be made in on, off, out, more, and ink the cake of food. And in that way, the cake of food is no in to allow the table column. And in per row of the table column, the alana will actually be Seihei in relation to provisioning that each law will map the condition of non-science and to subject into the school book. And in that way, when Google research itself by user account Tencent, the myth Potato by Fuku, and in that time, the porn star Elime itself into the production of sonar. And in that way, if there is a woohoo of a NASA, then when and why will Google retype itself into a suggestion of spell checker and to grammar show the inching non are? Each spider ink itself into the idling abor no abortion. So in that way with girls, when the typesetter searches for any kind of way, then how come we cannot insert the Google search by MSN, and in that time to share the selective news and read into the selective news, it suggests that each way it goes, it will meme the history of dinosaur and to indicate each word elating itself into the conference of searchers. So in that way, searching through the search engine optimization, the internet marketer will actually be clustered in relation to each searchers, and in that way, if there is no OP in relation to chemical recycling, then why do humans search the words on their own and looking for any kind of things in relation to table cells? And in relation to table cells, by the MySQL, the crawler indicate the revision to support that. We suggest that you should look for what you that's it. Anyway, any types of suggestion based upon font type, the Google will actually rephrase itself in relation to typesetter and to accumulate into story timer, and in that way the crawler will actually select pegs instead of along of ABO, and in ABO the character per letters is a sequence of by lines, and to offer each saluted eyeliner to care. So in that way, when human harmful peace know that I myself cannot me the right type, and in that way I keep looking for the opponent to law and sounds, and in that way Google will reflect pages per 10, 5, 10, 2 to table cell the correct basis of words and to simple what the looking through by each crawler by MSN identifying the table D and offer F and offer 1 And in that way, Yahoo indicate where Google has been typhoon into the typesetter to retype the correct word and to form into looking through physical AD cell A. And within that time, the next search engine optimizer will indicate where the ROI will offer into three parties to table the well of web, and in each well of web the characters per numbers to numeral, the alphabet per via lines in cells of table, and in that way each kernel is abbreviated in the cell by MySQL to offer the second, fifth, 10th, 12th, D5, and in that way when it mixes through storing backup file by the table, then releasing the D-fra of crawler to web out that the worldwide will identify that each words are mixy in relation to countries, nation. So in each world on the wide world web, it mixes the suggester by the crawler to see how real the nation is by no YouTube, and how the crawler will include itself into how come he's not Asian and he writes Asian. The offer is key abbreviation of Kingdom of Heaven, and to execute the Windows system by browsers, and to offer DSL by offering each plural of Lincoln and absolute the table cell to identify where human is. So in that way, in each user account, the text filing of Drasa is the mission to storm. So storming into what? Oh, enough. Type God. How many gods are there? Oh, see? Mispronunciation. Abbreviated. So what humans are looking for in relation to God and why? So the shortened table cell via lines is I learn the departure of each math and science, physio. And physio is that if there is a kid starting to learn the keyboard, then the parents say go to Google or use their own account, and in that way it stores into the lines via, and in that way how will the spider in the world know what age a child started to learn key. And in that way, with apple, the vegetarian is unidentifying monks. But in what monks will it priest into the prefix of meditation? So when monks look for meditation or recording meditation, which web will know who to crawl through via lines, via CDs music, and in that way, via CD music, which recycling of cases will offer into key cell by MSQL, and in MSQL it identifies handprint by priests to and from the book reader. So in that way, if the nun ran out of concept ideas because they can't find any more books to read, then searching through the suggested books they have not read, then any kinds of war in relation to the histogram of Pihu, then it crawls through the electric socket over the world. And in that time, the crawler Python the table per computer system, and per computer system the entire web is a massive matrix to sign through each era and looking through each era by the matrix, and to offer that the God has war, and in that time the God has war, then any abortion of history value on records of case to offer any kind of money and to bankfill the horizon Venton, the tableless system of 3 search engine optimizing POR, and optimizing in POR each alphabet letter is numeral, and in numeral via lines. The crawler will has offer error as well as threshold of computer, and in that way each error it doesn't have any more result. And in that time, when it doesn't have any more result, it only allow a certain amount of suggestion by Hellway, and by Hellway, that's the best offer it goes. It cannot change. So man walk through categories to table stores and to Victorton, the raper, to streets, and to search through idling human by offering that windows are not telling crawlers a proper story about God, and in each God the spirit energy is that the crawler misses each dying babies by learning of streets, and in that way it identifies the real you. So the entire plant, it finds where the real decoy is by departments of sub, and in by department of sub it rectify the pyramid controller by CP110-2 to see where each finger will eat the food and fly will parasite the amount of human, and in each human it siphons through the window and breaks to horn the police and sharing why, how come the entire sub is not cellularly into via lines, and to indicate that each store is just a quickie of sales after non-search suggested by God and mother sender by emails, and offering no work at all for each prime and Abalone, and in Abalone the outer space of boards has been chalked in teachers and siphoned through what the entire street looking for walking past and banking pay for. And in that way, our costume is just a costume. So whatever we look for, do we take verb pics of departments and thefts? So in that way, the vertical via lines abbreviate man, and in man, it rocked the core of Blangsang by languages. So the spider web method Apollo, the god, to see why the spider has never sleep. And in that time, the accountant by layers via OBBD offer sleeping pills to stay alive and selecting chemistry of the right medical, and in that way the spider cipher through ants. So when it does that, the ants turn into MSN to network the lizard. And when it does that, Yahoo has messy stories of Gugu before the table tree faces the cell via lines to street war and producta of conference, knowing that each Cyberlan will measure the next sample of girls, and in that way boys age up by full and looking for seductive. Anything else? I just got the call in my brain to see the world web. Each spot is in my head. No, just kidding. But anyway, the matrix is based upon the truth. That's it. But each store will offer the down call sound of violins. And to Stock Street, how well we cannot be in relation to puzzling the math condition. And the prototype will suggest that each compound will be liberated into per Andy, and in per Andy it statics the electric default IP address to walk through per crabs, and walk through per crabs it share into the streets of communication by God. And when it does that, it offer to be cooked and eaten, and in time human dies age, and in that way nationally When nature starts to widen the consumption of the timer, it stores itself into each fizzle, and in each fizzle, the computer in the digital world, some form the middle of tabulus, and in that time, it offer nothing. And when it offer nothing, the baby brain start to go to work, and stores through I live in the digital world, and I offer you 55C cell to departure of main, and in that time I don't look for more. But then why should I read? Oh, I'm gonna be bothered with this. And in that time, when we know how it offer into the intersection of bored of sex, looking for pornos to amuse us, and cipher through rubbish of stars and shooting around the face egg and identifying where vagina is. And in that way, each vagina is just a store of knowing how to examine by the kata to offer the genome. And that time, the next boredom of life is that sex exceeds the next male and offer homo. So when the spider knows each one, it electrocute into being bitten and poison homo, because in homo the third werewolf struck the moon. Ooh. And offer more loose ass and sharpen via lines in the ass and bleed through the genitals of each gay having sex with woman. And that way the transvestites indicate where the spider will be happy to tableless the vagina. But in so, the human walking through rocks of trees, looking for rocks of seeds, and looking for rock of water to chemseason. suggested ODBD and offer nothing because human is bored of working and skinless eating rotten food to enjoy stomach pains and offer Pytha the last water rock. And in that way, the last water rock is that each stainless steel, each knowing of an account, no, accumulate, accumulate of no work, then human becomes God. Then why does Dunn have suggested sausages by man, inches of foreskinless? Any kind of other suggestion in relation to sex? No, don't worry about it. Have sex with Gary every day. Doesn't bother me. So in that time of knowing that the assless of lines via skunk farting like manure and poo through the doors of office condoms and diaphragm and tampon. So in that way, any time of suggestion items cells to lines via rows. So each spider restless working every day, hypnotize physical biomedia hazard, and in that way humans search for anything they look for if they decide to look for, but if not they go to a shop and they cannot find it, and when they cannot find it they look for it in books and read and read and read, and when they read they can't even work it out and they go to, oh no, by God. So when they type through the keyboard, what are they bloody looking for? So if anything appears, it just goes through. I don't have sex. So who suggested? God? Spiders? Animals? Don't know. So in that way, it just searches through. Like that.